I'm Ronald, the rules lawyer, and here I'm going to give a demonstration of the new kingdom rules that are coming out in the Kingmaker Adventure Path being put out by Paizo for Pathfinder 2nd edition. These rules can also be used in D&D and other fantasy systems. They're system agnostic. I gave praise in my last video that these were a step up from the previous kingdom rules that were for 1st edition of Pathfinder, in that there's more unity between flavor and mechanics that give more opportunity for game masters and players to have interesting roleplay for the roles that happen in the system. But at the same time, in an exchange with the developer, James Jacobs, who makes great adventure paths, about these rules, he revealed that these were not play tested, and ideally they would have play tested them. Maybe they did not have manpower to do that. They usually play test new classes for Pathfinder 2nd edition and seem to not do the same for adventures that are being put out. It would be nice to see that same rigor be applied to adventures and the rules that come with adventures, particularly these rules, since they can be used in campaigns that are not Kingmaker, that they're basically an expansion to the rules of Pathfinder, in my opinion. But in the meantime, I think that this video has a second goal to function as a playtest of the rules. So what I'll be doing is I'll be doing 1 or 2 kingdom turns where I show the rules in action so that you can get a sense of the overall flow, what it feels like to use these rules. But I will increasingly be looking at the mechanics, pointing out problems, and then I'll end with a review of these rules as they currently are. I hope that this video can be the beginning of a playtest and design process of the community, and hopefully some Paizo developers as well, to make these work. And I rather like the rules, but they do need work. I'm happy that we're not simply being told make them up, which has been the accusation leveled at Wizards of the Coast for the recent Starjammer and some other subsystems they've released. And I would say what we have here is an engine that, or a car engine, where some of the cables, I don't even know that much about cars, where some of the things are connected to the wrong places. There's a few things to move, and maybe some screws to tighten, but otherwise we have something that just needs some fixing, which is a relatively good place to be given the lack of playtesting, but hopefully this will start a process. These kingdom rules are available as a free downloadable PDF on Paizo's website, and I will put a link in the video description. So at some point over the course of a campaign, the game master will tell the players that they have founded a kingdom and received some initial resources. So let's say we have our party that is a 5th level party, and we have the iconic Pathfinder Wizard, Fighter, Cleric, and Rogue, which are Valros, Ezrin, Kyra, and Mauricio, that have just been given a charter to found a kingdom. And this is a map that uses the world of Kingmaker, and in order not to give away too much of the map, I'm going to locate this kingdom in the middle of Brevoy, which is an already established nation, which might not be politically realistic. Who knows? Unless they were given a title by some king. I don't know that much about feudalism. But they were given this hex to work in. It's next to a river and has some light forest. And they then get to create their kingdom. And as I said in the last video, kingdoms are built like characters. So there's, like with Pathfinder 2e characters, you make some initial choices that determine your ability scores for your kingdom, which then are used, which give you modifiers for those ability scores that are then used for the various skills that your kingdom has. So the first choice is to choose what kind of charter you have. We can choose between conquest, expansion, exploration, grant, and open, which is more customizable. We'll choose an exploration charter. Our sponsor wants us to explore, clear, and settle a wilderness area along the border of the sponsor's own territory. Our charter helps to secure initial structures or supplies to create them at the cost of incurring a financial debt. What we have on the left here is the kingdom sheet, and I just erased the ability scores so that we can apply the modifiers that our initial choices will apply to the ability scores. So because we've chosen the exploration charter, that financial debt is expressed in us having a flaw to our economy. So I will put a minus sign to indicate that we're going to have a flaw. And we also get a boost to stability, which is basically our infrastructure, and one other ability score. And I'm going to apply that to culture, which is basically the knowledge of our kingdom, knowledge and arts. The next choice we make is our heartland. The wilderness area we establish our starting town in determines that. Well, we actually could arguably say we're in a forest or next to a river. We choose to have a river for our choice. It says, by establishing our nation on the shores of a lake or river, we ensure a built-in mechanism for trade. Even before a road is built, merchants and travelers can reach our settlement with relative ease via boat. So this gives us a boost to our economy, which cancels out our flaw. Next is we choose a form of government. Our choices are despotism, feudalism, oligarchy, republic, and thaumacy, and yeomanry. And we're going to choose a republic. We have kind of the party, by the way, step one of making a kingdom is to come up with a concept for your kingdom, and these players have decided they want to have a liberal free market government that has a lot of civil liberties and promotes freedom of thought. And our nation draws its leadership from its own citizens. Elected representatives meet in parliamentary bodies to guide the nation. So this will give boost to stability and loyalty, plus a free ability boost that we are going to put into culture. Also, being a republic gives us skill proficiencies. We have 16 skills that the kingdom can use on the variety of checks. And having a republic gives us proficiency in engineering and politics. So we get to add our proficiency modifier. Proficiency when you are trained in something, and trained is the initial level of training. That's what this tiny t stands for. Means that your proficiency bonus is going to equal your kingdom's level, which is 1 right now, and 2. So you add that together, and for level 1 kingdom, therefore, our proficiency bonus when we're trained in something is 3. Each of these skills also has one of the initial ability scores associated with it that is included in our total bonus. Finally, our Republican form of government gives us a bonus feat. Kingdoms have feats in this system that give us special abilities. Our kingdom feat is pull together, which means that if things are going very wrong, our people are very reliable and able to make swift decisions to make sure things don't get off track. So what that means in mechanical terms is that if we roll a critical failure, like a natural 1, for example, on a check, then we have a chance of turning that into just a simple failure, 50-50. And we can do that once per kingdom turn. Trying to do that again in the immediate next kingdom turn is more difficult, and several turns need to pass before you go back to the original 50-50 chance. The last step for our ability scores is to give 2 different ability scores a boost. So we're going to apply that to economy, which is our lowest stat, and also to loyalty. This in the end gives us pretty even ability scores with a relatively low economy. And we convert those scores into modifiers. The way they're converted is familiar to anyone who plays D&D or Pathfinder. We then record our kingdom's level, which is going to be level 1, our kingdom's size, which is the number of hexes we control, so we have a size of 1. We note down our resource dice, which are d4s at this size of our kingdom. When our kingdom reaches size 10, this becomes a d6. And also, we have 5 resource dice that we start with. So every kingdom turn that happens, at some point we're going to roll 5d4, which determines how many resources we have for that kingdom turn. We also start with 0 unrest and 0 consumption. Consumption is our food cost per turn that we need to satisfy. The next thing is we choose our leaders. All of the player characters assume a role. These roles do not have much mechanical effect in this system as of now. They simply determine which events you might be able to confer a bonus toward. However, they are guides for roleplay. Also, having a position empty imposes a penalty on the kingdom. However, by this point, the party has met enough non-player characters to fill the empty roles. Kyra the cleric will be the ruler, Valeros the fighter will be the general, Mauriciel the rogue will be the treasurer, and Ezrin the wizard will be the warden. Next, we choose 4 leadership roles that will be invested. What investment means is that the ability score that kingdom role is associated with will have a status bonus during this kingdom turn. These are not likely to change often. To change them, you would need to do a kingdom activity during a turn that requires a successful check. The instructions say to invest those roles assigned to player characters first, but I don't see the reason for that, because the mechanical effect of it is giving a status bonus to all kingdom checks that use that ability score. So mechanically, it makes sense to invest ruler, magister, treasurer, and warden, which are associated with loyalty, culture, economy, and stability, respectively. Then each of the 4 invested leaders, according to the instructions, chooses 1 skill that the kingdom will be proficient in. These are a permanent decision and cannot be changed, so this is an important set of decisions. We are going to choose agriculture, arts, defense, and intrigue. I chose these in particular because in my initial playthrough, the activities I wanted to do that were important to a fledgling kingdom tended to rely on these. Some did not, which is something I'll comment on later. As you can see, there's a status bonus for every single skill because I've chosen to invest roles associated with all 4 ability scores. And this status bonus increases when we reach higher kingdom levels. Note that our kingdom's level can never be higher than the party's character level. So I note here that the maximum level for the kingdom is 5, because the party is level 5. The next step of kingdom creation is founding our first village, which is going to be Ronville. I'm not very creative with names. This gives us 40 experience points for our kingdom. Our kingdom needs 1,000 experience points to attain the next kingdom level. There's a list of milestones that, when achieved, give the kingdom experience points when you reach that for the first time. This village is also established in a hex that has a pre-existing structure in it, in this case a shrine, so that will become an initial free building for the settlement. The next step is to calculate skill modifiers, which I'll do by simply adding the numbers in each row. Our last choice for kingdom creation is to choose whether we want fame or infamy. Fame is a resource, well, they're both resources that let you re-roll a unwanted check result. A famous kingdom seeks to bolster its citizens, forge alliances, or oppose the rise of cruelty, while an infamous kingdom uses its citizens' resources, undermines and sabotages its neighbors, or actively seeks warfare. Note that kingdoms do not have alignments. This is the closest we get to an alignment. Some events can increase one and not the other. We'll see as we play it out, hopefully. I've activated my nifty yellow cursor highlighter now. I forgot to mention that we start with a control difficulty class, or control DC of 14, which is the difficulty number we need to roll whenever we do a kingdom check. This number goes up as our kingdom levels up. Filling all 8 of our kingdom rolls is a milestone which earns us 60 experience points more, so our XP goes up to 100. The first kingdom turn happens now, and a kingdom turn is about 1 month of game time, and it's expected that every player character who has a kingdom roll spend 1 week at least per month on their roll, and if not, then there is a penalty. I am indebted to the Reddit user Tomeric, who made a automated kingdom tracking spreadsheet for these kingdom rules, and I will share a link in the video description. These rules have the advantage of guiding you through the steps of a kingdom turn in case you forget them, and also showing you the rules for every possible kingdom activity that you can do. There are plenty kingdom activities, and it's nice to have the rules for them. It also keeps a record of what happens every turn. Once you follow the link, you'll go directly to the spreadsheet. However, you need to make your own copy of the spreadsheet. So you'll want to go under File and make a copy, and then that will make a copy for yourself in your own Google account. Then when you enter it, you'll see that there already is the basics of a kingdom, including even the first settlement. You'll want to empty these out. So you do that on the first tab called README. You want to click this button, Clear Values, and it'll run through a script. It'll ask for permission to run a script. Say yes, and it will execute the script. You only have to give that permission 1 time. You'll want to go through the kingdom creation steps that I went over on the official sheet, but do them on here. Then you go to the Kingdom Tracker tab. And this goes through all of the phases systematically. The first phase is the upkeep phase, and we start every turn, as it says here, with 1 fame or infamy. And next is we assign leadership roles. We have an opportunity to move our player characters around. We just did that at character creation, of kingdom creation, and so we skip this in the first turn. Next is we adjust unrest, which for the first kingdom turn will be 0. Next is resource collection. So we roll our resource dice, which is 5d4, and this determines how many resources we start the turn with. And that will be 14. Then we pay consumption, which is the food demand of our kingdom, which is 0 on the first turn. The next phase is the commerce phase. Here we have the option of collecting taxes. If we do this, it will give us a bonus to our economy-based checks. Economy is one of our ability scores. However, it has the possibility of increasing unrest. So this is kind of risky. However, I wanted to experiment with the system, so I am going to collect taxes. Trade is not one of our trained skills. It's only a +2. Well, remember that our control DC is 14, so I need a 14 on this roll. So let's see what happens. I miss it by 1. I have the option of spending that fame point. However, I won't. There's a more important check that I'd like to try later. But because we fail, and this is what's nifty about this spreadsheet, is the results, the 4 degrees of success are right here. It tells me that the people are unhappy about taxes. It tells me that I get the +1 circumstance bonus to economy-based checks, but people are unhappy about taxes, and we increase unrest by 1. We increase it by 2 if we tried to collect taxes the previous turn. So this unrest increase leads to a -1, and this should be automated, by the way. Hopefully that will be in a future version, to all kingdom checks. And this is a -1 status penalty. In a future turn, if we still have this unrest, we can choose not to collect taxes, which gives us a 50-50 chance of reducing unrest by 1. Next, we approve expenses. This includes improving lifestyle, improving the quality of life of our citizens. This actually does not cost resource points, and so I decided, let's do this. So this is a politics check, which as a republic, we are proficient in. So I have a +6, and I need that 14. and I get a success. So this means we get a +1 bonus, circumstance bonus, to culture-based checks on this turn. And what's nice is that the spreadsheet is going to update my bonus with these various skills as I make these changes at the top. Our next option is to tap the treasury, basically for our player characters to gain gold from the kingdom. Kind of inherently corrupt sounding. This can increase unrest and also gives us a penalty to economy checks. I found this was not very useful while our kingdom is level 1. It's based on the kingdom's level, and we refer to a chart in the Pathfinder core rules. What you get is equivalent of how much a player character of the kingdom's level would get in currency over the course of that event of adventuring during that level. And a level 1 character will get about 10 gold in currency, and that's what the whole party gets. So this doesn't seem very worth it given the downsides. Next is to tap commodities. We have no commodities in our kingdom. We can have food, lumber, luxuries, ore, and stone, and we can basically sell them to groups or other kingdoms that we encounter over the course of the fantasy campaign. And this would give us resource dice for the next kingdom turn if we succeeded on this. Then we get to manage trade agreements. We don't have any yet. We will hopefully establish one soon, but this is an opportunity to get more resources at the start of the turn. Next is the activity phase. And this is the bulk of the turn. There are different steps, each associated with a different kind of activity. And step 1 is leadership activities, those activities that the leaders do. Every player character gets to do 2 leadership activities per kingdom turn. This increases to 3 once you have a town hall. If your character did not do a week of downtime doing the duties of their role, you reduce the number of leadership activities by 1 or take the vacancy penalty. There's a lot of activities here. I'm only going to explain those that I demonstrate in this tutorial. Presumably, the players would sit around the table and work together to figure out what needs to be done and figure out who does what. Technically, which player does a skill check doesn't matter. It seems to refer to the abilities, the skill bonuses of the kingdom and not of the character. I found that during the first kingdom turn, a lot of these leadership activities were kind of ruled out because they cost resources, which I wanted to save for the region activities and civic activities, which come later in this phase. So let's just say that Kyra, our ruler, is going to do 2 activities. I saw that the generic -1 wasn't having an effect on these abilities, so that's another thing that should be tweaked, or maybe I'm not using it correctly. But yeah, there's a -1 because of our unrest. So actually, the first thing we want to do is get rid of that nasty -1 penalty to everything caused by our unrest. So we're going to quell unrest, which, despite the name, is not necessarily suppression. This is mainly sending agents out among the populace. You can even do an arts check. Basically, we are calming the people down through whatever means. Folklore is another. So arts, we're going to do an arts check, and it's actually a +6 that we have. We got a 23, which, if it had been 1 higher, would have been a critical success. That reduces our unrest by 1. The next thing she wants to do is create a masterpiece. She wants to create more fame to help with future kingdom checks. So she's going to do an arts check, which is now just a +7. And a 1 is not, that's going to critically fail. She's actually going to spend her fame in order to have the possibility of gaining fame. That is quite a difference. She critically succeeds. So we gain 1 fame, and at the start of the next kingdom turn, we get an additional fame and gain 2 resource dice, representing how amazing our statue or whatever was. Next is Valrost, and there's a group of goblins that they met over their adventures that he would love to have ally with the kingdom, and they can be the basis of a new specialized army unit. I'll go over the warfare rules hopefully in a future video, and also provide other benefits. And however, Valeros notes that a critical failure means that they will never pledge fealty to the kingdom. Since we only have one fame point that we want to save for a future check, we're going to skip it for now. Next, I want to send a diplomatic envoy to the nation of Brevoy in order to establish diplomatic relations and also have trade agreements. However, we come up against a problem. This is identified as a trained kingdom skill. We have to be trained in it in order to attempt it. And since we're not trained in statecraft, we cannot do that. So until we get an improvement in our statecraft, we cannot have diplomatic relations. So Valeros wants to improve the wealth of the nation next. So his first check will be to craft luxuries. Again, our kingdom is amazing at the arts, and this will help us gain a commodity. And our roll of 16 succeeds. Our artisans produce some delightful goods, giving us a luxury commodity, and we'll see what we can do with that later. Next, because we planned some construction during the civic phase to build a building, we want to purchase some commodities. We need some lumber for what we're about to make. And we have some resource points to spend. So we'll do a trade check and try to get a 14. And we do not succeed. And that sucks. So we're going to spend our one fame point and try again. And we do not succeed again. So we have no commodities to build with. Next is Mauricial, who will do clandestine business. And this is basically engaging in the underground economy to get more resources. So this is an intrigue check. And that succeeds. So we immediately roll. We either roll 2 resource dice and gain those resources, or gain 1 to 4 luxury commodities. We are swimming in resource points right now, and they don't stick around for the next kingdom turn. So we're going to take 1 to 4 luxury commodities and get 5 more, and we are capped at 4. We cannot have more than 4 of any commodity when we start off our kingdom. That increases when our kingdom size increases. Also, because we did not critically succeed, rumors spread and unrest increases. Because of this new unrest, she is going to rest and relax, and this is a funny activity to me. Basically, the rulers relax and set a good example for the nation, and that's supposed to make them happier or less restless. I don't know, seeing Trump golf in Mar-a-Lago, I don't know if that necessarily inspires confidence, but yeah, this can be one of many checks, and there's a lot of suggestions here. An arts check, which is our best bonus here, is to spend the time engaged in an entertainment or the pursuit of a hobby. So we're going to do that, and because we have unrest, we have a -1 penalty to this roll, and we do not succeed. So we continue to have our unrest problem. Ezrin is going to send spies out. Infiltration's an interesting activity. It's basically the gather information of a kingdom, but presumably you can do more because of the time scale, and your kingdom has more resources than a venturing party. But you can get intel on a neighboring nation, a cult, or a thieves guild. Those are just examples given in the text. There's an alternate use, which is not really clear in the text, but you can also try to reduce unrest with this activity by investigating the current health of your kingdom, which is a basic loyalty check. And our loyalty is +2. And we have a -1 on all kingdom checks. So let's see how this goes. Oh, that is a critical failure. So we never hear from our spies again, but someone certainly does, and we get a -2 circumstance penalty on all kingdom checks until the end of the next kingdom turn. This is incredibly bad. So I'm going to put this -3 up here. It's not applying it to the spreadsheet, but it is a reminder. -1 from unrest, -2 from this result. Basically, we are known as a corrupt government that spies on its own people. This is getting too realistic. Ezran has the group's last leadership activity, and we'll try to purchase some of that lumber that they need for building. Many of these activities we can attempt more than one time. This involves spending resources, 4 resources. It costs 8 resources to try to obtain luxuries. So our trade is +3, but unfortunately, because of our penalties, this was actually a +0. And we succeed! Yay! We get 2 commodities of the chosen type. We now have 2 lumber. Thus endeth the leadership activities. Next are region activities, and every kingdom turn, the players get 3 of these. These are us trying to expand and develop the overall hex map. Farmlands reduce our consumption cost per turn. Work sites give us commodities every turn. And there's a number of things that I expected to be able to do from playing Civilization games. I was thinking this is a time to build a farmland because that reduces the consumption demand for food that our kingdom has every turn. However, it's not possible to build that before the kingdom reaches level 3, and this is why. You need to build it not in your starting hex because it's a terrain feature. A farmland is, and a settlement is also a terrain feature, and you cannot have more than 1 terrain feature in a hex. Also, the farmland needs to be in a hex that has that is within the influence of one of your settlements, and our settlement is only a village, and therefore has an influence radius of 0, and it's impossible for a settlement to become a town, which gives it an influence radius of 1 before the kingdom attains level 3. And so we cannot build a farmland. Work sites produce commodities and are also terrain feature. However, for some reason, it does not say it has to be within your influence. However, we do need it within our kingdom. So another activity is to claim a hex. So we're going to try to claim these hills here so that we can create a quarry to try to get the stone commodity. So claiming a hex is an activity. First, we have to have reconnoitered the hex, which is something that the party does while exploring. And we're going to assume it's cleared of all dangerous monsters. Then it has to be adjacent to a hex we already have claimed. If there were dangerous monsters, there is a clear hex activity as well, if you want agents from your kingdom to take care of it. Until we reach level 4 as a kingdom, we can attempt to claim a hex only once per kingdom turn. So we're going to use our best bonus because that makes the most sense. We're going to use our +6, which is actually a +3, to try to claim this hill hex next to us. And we miss by 1. We do not succeed. And we'll have to wait until next turn to try that. So we cannot establish a work site since we failed to claim the hex. We can go fishing to try to get food commodities, and this will be a +0 bonus on our check. And we can try this more than once. That is a critical failure. We lose fishers to tragic accidents and gain 1 unrest. Now, I realize in retrospect that when I critically failed that intrigue check, that I absolutely should have used my feet to pull together and not let that happen. So I'm going to retroactively do that, even though, and I'll just say that the player, me, did not remember his abilities. So this was basically a flat check, and we need an 11 or higher, according to the pull together feat. And we will succeed. So we just get a regular failure. So nothing happens. This hex that's next to our kingdom. Also, we increase our kingdom size by 1. And there's another tab called History, which tracks what happens overall on the turn. So I claim 1 hex here. Next, we try to establish a work site, a quarry, in this hex, and we have an excellent engineering skill because of our republic, and this is a +5 we have in our check. And that is not going to succeed, so we do not have a quarry established this turn. And we have a choice. Do we want to try to go fishing to get commodity, a food commodity, or try to establish a work site again? I think we want to try again. Oh, I had to spend resources as determined by the most inhospitable terrain. And on this chart, it says that I spend 2 resource points in order to build on hills. I do get to attempt again, but I do have to pay this resource cost. And I succeed. Great, so we have a work site. And this means we get to use it next turn. The last step of the activities phase is civic activities. Here I could build houses. That's probably the wise thing to do. The reason is that on this urban grid, first of all, I should show you on this spreadsheet, you will want to delete the town that is created for you. You want to delete the rows and then add an urban grid for your new settlement. And it'll give you an empty grid that you can then give a name. And so your settlement, this is an abstract map, and you start, and we already have a shrine in one of these. So I'm going to put that free structure that was part of the hex before we established, that was the party found while exploring the wilderness before founding their settlement on it. While your town is only a village, which it can only be until the kingdom reaches level 3, you can only occupy this square in the corner, this 2x2 square in the corner. These are called districts. These are also called blocks. Each block is composed of lots, or the text also calls them neighborhoods. And each structure takes up one or more lots. And our shrine, we're going to say, is right here. We want to build a tenement here. And we cannot jump to another district unless we have filled out one district. And again, we cannot be bigger than one district. The reason we want to build houses is because we want to avoid the settlement becoming overcrowded. It becomes overcrowded if it has more districts than it has the number of residences. Houses are a type of residence structure. And you don't want to be overcrowded because that's going to create more unrest during the next kingdom turn. Yeah, the wise thing would be to build houses, but I'm going to build a tenement, or try to, in order to demonstrate another mechanic. So here we go. I am going to spend 1 resource point and 1 lumber, which I have. Oh, I actually had 2, but I'm going to reduce it to 1. And I'm going to try to build this. Every structure has a skill associated with this. I have to do an industry check, and my kingdom has a +2 industry. Not very good. It's an economy-based skill. And this DC reflects what level the structure is. There's actually many structures that are not available to a level 1 kingdom, and this is all that's available to us. So I will do a +1 check because of the penalty I currently have from unrest. And that is a critical success. Yay. So I construct the structure with great efficiency and get back half of the commodities spent in construction or repair. And I was a cheapo, so I get nothing back because I round down when I divide in half. You generally round down in these games. And I get to build the structure. First time I build tenements each kingdom turn, I reduce unrest by 1. So yay. But also I get +1 to a ruin of my choice. Now what is ruin? Every ability score is counterposed to a ruin. Culture is counterposed to corruption. Economy to crime. Loyalty to decay. And stability to strife. And I'm going to add 1 to a ruin of my choice. I'm going to add it to corruption. That's kind of on theme with what has been happening. Corruption represents people falling into debauchery, delving into forbidden lore, pursuing unethical research practices, or destroying their own heritage and history. They're doing all those things in these seedy tenements. Ruin sucks because it is persistent and it goes down only under specific circumstances. This is actually not a penalty yet. It has to exceed the ruin threshold. And when your kingdom starts out, the threshold for each ruin is 10. As your kingdom levels up, this number will increase and other things can increase it. Once it exceeds 10, you subtract 10 from the threshold and you add 1 to the penalty. That would give a permanent item penalty to all checks associated with its ability score, and that is clearly bad. Next is the warfare phase, which we will not go into. A future video will go into the warfare rules. The last phase is the event phase, where we check for a random event. We do a flat check, which again is a check without any modifiers at all whatsoever. And if we get a 16 or higher, we will have a random event. We do not. And therefore, the next time we go around to the event phase, this DC will lower by 5. Next, we apply Kingdom XP. And we got XP from our initial acts, which gave us 100, plus any excess resource points that were not spent, that gets added to our total as well. You cannot get more than 120 XP per kingdom turn from resource points. We now have 105 experience points. Next on this nifty spreadsheet, we go to the History tab and we save the kingdom turn. It runs a script and it keeps a record of what happened. And then when we go back to the turn tracker and reset the turn tracker, it is going to reset everything here, reducing our resource points to 0. It should probably also add 1 to our fame because we start every kingdom turn with 1 fame. Our unrest needs to stay at 1 and not change. I'm going to now go through the second turn, which includes some steps that we skipped the first time. For things that are redundant, I'll kind of go through those quickly and then conclude with a review on these rules and where they're at now. So we start with our 1 fame and we do not change any leadership roles. Then we adjust unrest, which we skipped last time. First, there are some ongoing events that might increase unrest. We do so now. Also, for every settlement we have that is overcrowded, we increase unrest. We succeeded at building our tenement. Also, if we are at war, we increase unrest by 1. Next, we collect resources. We're going to roll our 5d4. Finally, if we have any work sites established, we gather commodities. We get 1 commodity from each work site. So our ore site here is going to give us 1 ore. There's some hexes in a wilderness that might have a resource which would produce 2 commodities per turn instead. Next, we pay consumption. It already says I have 1 kingdom consumption, and that's correct because I have a village, and villages have a consumption of 1. We need to spend that at this time. However, we have no food commodities to satisfy that with. So we need to either spend 5 resource points instead, or increase unrest by 1d4. We definitely do not want that unrest, and we fortunately have bonus resources, so we're going to feed people with money. Then we go to the commerce phase. We can collect taxes again. However, we saw that can increase our unrest, and also it can increase it further if we collected taxes the previous turn, which actually I should have checked on this column here. There's a column for that on this tracker. So it's not a good idea. We're not going to collect taxes this turn. We do want to improve lifestyle again. So we have this politics check, and it will have a penalty due to our unrest. So we succeed at improving their lifestyle. We get a +1 circumstance bonus to culture-based checks. We do not want to tap the treasury, and we could tap commodities. We could sell these luxuries that we have so that we would gain bonus resource dice next turn. Let's sell 2 of these luxuries and do an industry check. And that is also a success. At the beginning of the next kingdom turn, we get 1 bonus resource die per point of stockpile expended from our commodities. So we're going to have 2 bonus dice next turn. Then manage trade agreements. We have no trade agreements. And we have no one to trade with because we do not know statecraft. Okay, next is the activity phase. We have our 8 activities again. I think we want to create that masterpiece again. No, actually, let's try to quell unrest and entertain people with art. So let's do that +6 check, shall we? And ooh, we are doing so well. That's a critical success, a 24. And that means we reduce unrest by 1d6. We only have 1 unrest now, but I'm going to roll it anyway. And we no longer have a penalty to our kingdom checks. Then let's create an awesome piece of art so that we can have another fame point for this turn. One of the 4 players is doing this, obviously. And we have another critical success. Things are going so well in the kingdom. They critically succeed. They got 1 point of fame immediately. And at the start of the next kingdom turn, they will get an additional fame and get 2 resource dice. Oh, actually, that was something that we critically succeeded on last turn. And next kingdom turn, we get an additional fame at the start of the turn. We immediately roll 2 resource dice, so we get to get 2d4 resources right now. This must have been a really awesome, 7 resource dice, a piece of art that we made. So we have 6 more leadership activities. I think we want to get some lumber because we can harvest some ore, and that will open up more of what we can build. So we're going to purchase a commodity, and we have a +2 on this check, and a 15 succeeds. We get 2 commodities of the chosen type, so we're now up to 3 lumber. We're going to provide care. This is to encourage our settlements healers, medics, and caregivers to provide care. This can be a way to counter ruin in our kingdom. And this uses our defense score, which is really good. And that also succeeds with a 14. So we reduce unrest by 1, but we needed to critically succeed to reduce ruin. I believe we have 4 more things to do. We have these hero points, and so we want to approach the goblins and see if they will ally with our kingdom. I'm going through this very quickly in order to make the video short, but obviously, since this is once per game month, if it's interspersed with adventuring, this is a great time for the GM to, slow things down and role play a number of these activities. And we're going to use intrigue, to try to get them to pledge fealty to us. We have to roll a 1 to critically fail, so this is probably not a bad idea to try, especially since we have a hero point. Now, the DC to get the goblins' fealty was actually not a 14, it was an 18, so this is not a critical success. We also need to spend a resource die to cover the costs of integrating them into our kingdom, which is 3. Also, we get a specific boon or advantage from getting their fealty that is described in their entry, it says. And in the Kingmaker Adventure Path, you're going to encounter groups of NPCs, organizations, and something will be said. However, this GM will say the goblins, they are going to be willing to work in helping to cut down trees and provide lumber. So in this hex, if the kingdom can incorporate it, this will be a work site to produce 2 lumber per turn. Due to the ruin that we have in our kingdom at the moment, we want to repair our reputation. So we do things to reassure the citizens and bring them closer together to stamp out crime, organize repairs, and so forth. To reduce our corruption, that requires an arts check. So we will do that. So here we go with a +7 check. And that is a 22. That succeeds. So we reduce the corruption by 1, which now goes down to 0. Next is an important one, focused attention. If we particularly find a check to be very important, one of the leaders can set aside time to help that leader in the activity with focused attention. The DC is 20. This is like the aid action in regular Pathfinder 2E. If you can succeed on this check, you will give a circumstance bonus to the other leader's check. And here it's a nice +2, so it operates a little differently from aid. So let's say Kyra will help Ezrin here by using the kingdom's resources to create art and culture to help Ezrin with crafting luxuries, which totally makes sense theme-wise. So because of the bonus to culture checks from the beginning of the turn, Kyra gets a +7. And this is a success. Ezrin will now craft those luxuries, who will now have a +9 bonus on the check. And that is a 20, and that succeeds and produces a luxury commodity. So that goes up to 3. We are lastly going to use infiltration to learn more information about another group of humanoids in the forest, some boggards, let's say. And they get a +6 here, and that'll be succeed. So they get some useful information, but it'll be vague and imprecise. Okay, the first thing we want to do is try to claim that hex that has our friendly goblins in it. So we spend 1 resource and do a intrigue check. And we critically succeed. So we claim the hex and immediately add it to our territory, increasing our kingdom size by 1. And I forgot to mention this last time, but we gain 10 XP every time we claim a hex. So we're going to be adding 20 here to make up for what they should have earned last turn. Because we critically succeeded, we get a free other region activity this turn, but we're limited to 1 claim hex activity per turn. Last turn, I probably should have harvested crops, since we're much better at that than we are at fishing. So we will do that. And that does not succeed. And we will try again. We have 2 more region activities. That does not succeed. Okay, let's use one of our fame here. Let's try that again. We need this food. This game refuses to... Oh, 15. Good, we get 1 food commodity. So we're not going to be dealing with hungry people this next turn. And our last region activity is, I think, to build a road through here. This allows anything moving along the road to treat the terrain as 1 step easier. Takes less time to travel through, and will be useful in the future in case we need to deploy armies into the field. So we look at the type of terrain it is. This is a forest, so it's going to cost 4 resources to attempt to do so, and it uses our engineering skill. And that succeeds. So we build roads in the hex. I have run out of room. Let's just imagine there are roads there. Next, we have our 1 civic activity, and since we have all these resources, we try to build a brewery. And this will cost 6 resources and 2 lumber, and we have to do an agriculture check. And we are pretty good at that. We have a +6 bonus on agriculture checks. And it's a 15 that we need. Well, a total of 13 is not going to help, but we do have that last fame point, so we'll now spend that. And we succeed. So 23 succeeds at building a brewery. This gets added to our grid, and we now have little room left. We have a shrine, a tenement, and a brewery. Also, when we build a brewery, we reduce unrest by 1 as long as we have fewer than 4 breweries in the settlement at that time. And it gives us a +1 item bonus to establishing trade agreements. If we were able to have diplomatic relations with another nation, we could establish a trade agreement, which can be a source of future income. And a lot of these buildings give item bonuses to checks. The herbalist, for example, gives a bonus to providing care. So item bonuses like magic items for Pathfinder characters provide item bonuses. It's a way to have something physical permanently attached to help checks in that area. We skip the warfare phase and go straight to the event phase. We only need to roll an 11 this time on our flat check. And we succeed. So we have a table that is in the PDF, and we roll a D100 to see what that is. So we roll a 57. A lot of these events are interesting. 57, we have a monster activity. A claimed hex chosen by the game master that is not in the influence of a settlement. So let's say the goblins are being terrorized by something, some drake. And the Kingmaker Adventure Path has a wilderness random encounter table that would be used at this time, but we won't use that here. Also, the monster event, as you can see in the stat block, says event +0. So that is a modifier to the kingdom's level. And this makes this a level 1 event. The text says that this is to determine the amount of XP the kingdom will earn as a result. However, it contradicts text elsewhere that says that if you resolve an event, you gain 30 XP. Because leveling up is slow, as we kind of are seeing, I'm going to give XP for both, resolving the event and the 30 XP for having experienced an event. This can be resolved, obviously, by the GM if they want to do this through a combat encounter, but it's possible to do a kingdom skill check, in this case the defense skill. And defense is going to be a +6. We are good at that. That's one of the skills we chose to be good at. And additionally, for resolving an event, if you have a player character in the role that's associated with that event type, in this case the ruler, then you get a +1 circumstance bonus to the check. This bonus increases when the kingdom levels up to level 9. So this is going to be a +7. So this is basically the kingdom using its resources to fend off the monster or group of monsters. So that 15 succeeds, and it's going to mean that the monsters attack some of the citizens but are driven off before they do too much damage. The threat persists, and while fear continues to slowly spread, our kingdom suffers no physical damage at this time, and we increase unrest by 1. So this becomes a continuous event that will plague us in the future. A level 1 kingdom that encounters an at-level event, level 1 event, will be getting 40 XP. So let's add that to our total here. And additionally, they get 30 XP for experiencing a random event. So that is 90 XP, and we add 7 for the unspent resource points, and we now have our total. We now are at 202 XP. And we save our kingdom turn, and we get the new totals. So now my thoughts on the state of these rules. Again, I think that these are an improvement on the first edition rules in that things are not automatically successful, checks are required. With the previous version of the rules, you basically felt like you're just doing a lot of math and managing a spreadsheet. You just spent this amount of resources to build that road, and then that increased your economy by X. But these checks give some randomness to kingdom building and some drama because you have to roll a die, and also because a number of these things you can talk through. A creative GM can challenge the players to come up with how they do these things. But there are some flaws. First, there's a lot of page flipping involved, and the automatic spreadsheet that I used helps greatly because you get to see the rules for each activity. But this would benefit hugely from having an online reference. Hopefully the Archives of Nethys, which has Pathfinder's rules on it for free, will have tables eventually when the PDF drops October 26th that organizes the activities by kingdom skill, and also by which phase they can be used in, and also lets you know at a glance which of your 4 ability scores are used for various activities. And so therefore color codes the skills so that you can see at a glance. Let's say your kingdom has a very good loyalty score, then you can focus on those kinds of activities. It will help decision making greatly. Also, having a TLDR on this table, such as these are the ones that reduce your unrest, or these are the ones that give you commodities, would be very useful. I found myself having to basically read every single skill in order to figure out how to which decisions to make. Another useful table would be a list of the buildings organized by level, and also showing how much of each resource those buildings use up, and also what skill is required to build each building, and to make it possible to organize it by any of these elements. So ease of use can be improved here. But if you were looking closely at this demonstration, you'll see that there's also a few other issues. 2 main ones that I'll go over. First, that the skills system effectively prevents you from doing certain activities and sometimes outright prevents you from doing certain activities. Some of them are essential to your kingdom, and this will increase as your kingdom grows. So we had the problem that some activities require that your kingdom be trained in those activities. So we were not able to send a diplomatic envoy because we were not trained in statecraft. That seems like a huge disadvantage, and it had the unfun effect of just making some things impossible. During kingdom creation, you choose 4 skills that you are trained in, and that cannot change over the course of the kingdom's life. And that is, there are no retraining rules for kingdoms. James Jacobs, in one of the threads on the Paizo forums, says that changing those skills for a specific kingdom turn could be a possibility, that people should do that, and so he actually suggests people do that. He's basically pretty open about the fact that these rules could use some work, and that people should make them work for their own tables. For that aspect of the problem, I would propose that the change leadership activity is an opportunity to change the kingdom's one of the kingdom's trained skills for the future. And a number of the activities that I used in this demonstration, I was only able to try because I was trained in them. So doing clandestine business required being trained in intrigue, and creating a masterpiece required being trained in arts. And strangely enough, and I'm glad the spreadsheet didn't implement this rule, collecting taxes requires being trained in trade. It's hard to imagine a government that cannot collect taxes. And also, I don't think any of the activities should require being trained in a skill. There are only, from my count, 7 activities that require being trained, and I'll list them on the screen. And I don't think it is realistic. A kingdom has many people who can do services for the kingdom, and can find somebody to attempt these things, an envoy, for example. And so the rules of characters being trained in something and not other things don't seem applicable to me for purposes of determining a kingdom's abilities, because a kingdom is not a single individual. And these activities are so few and far between, it doesn't seem to change much about the system. Another issue that I see is that the kingdom, as it levels up, will see its the DCs, the number you need to succeed on all of these checks, increase with it. As we get to a 20th level kingdom, you'll need a 40 on these checks by default. Additionally, as the kingdom grows in size, there is a modifier to the control DC. A kingdom with a size of 100 or more hexes will have a +4 added to that DC. So you'll start to need to get 44 on your checks. I'm going to guess that this is going to be met with the kingdom getting item bonuses to its checks from buildings, and from the improvements to a status bonus to checks by investing into various roles. That status bonus increases as the kingdom levels up. However, that might only offset the size modifier of up to +4. The main control DC determined by the kingdom's level zooms all the way up to 40. It goes up a total of 26 over the course of the kingdom's lifetime. All of the skills that the kingdom is trained in, is proficient in, will include the kingdom's level in the bonus. However, the skills that the kingdom is not trained in, you never add the level. So at level 20, you'll have, in all of your skills that are untrained, you'll have, let's say, a +6, +8, I'm just ballparking that, in order to reach a 40. And those who know the rules in Pathfinder know that even a natural 20 will not help you succeed on that. So I propose a revision where untrained skills get to add the kingdom's level to them. And those skills that the kingdom is still trained in still get the benefit of the +2, but you can increase your skills as you level up the kingdom and make your kingdom expert and master and eventually legendary in them. So that advantage can increase to up to +8. So I think that would make a more satisfying experience. It means that a +2 gap is significant in Pathfinder with the degrees of success system. You get a +2 increase to not only succeed, but also to critically succeed. And also, I see that the control DC chart is basically copying over the DCs by level chart from Pathfinder 2nd edition. And that chart makes sense for player characters. And player characters normally are in a party. And you have more than one player character in a party. And there usually is a division of skills that people work out. I'm going to take this skill, that skill. I'll be expert in trap finding, thievery, for example, while you can focus on medicine or arcana. That usually happens in a party. We have effectively a solo party with the kingdom rules, and the kingdom only is able to be proficient in several of the skills, in 6 of them, to be precise, when there are a total of 16. And if they want to become proficient in a broader array of skills, they have to spend all of their skill increases to spread out and become proficient in every skill over the course of 20 levels, which is unsatisfying. There's no real progression of any of your skills there. You don't get to make any of them expert even. Or just be expert, master, legendary, and a handful of skills, and the rest you're just going to be terrible at and increasingly be worse at, in fact, as your kingdom levels up, which I do not think is intended. So this chart might not need to escalate as aggressively as it does now, because higher level characters generally are able to stack on more bonuses onto a check that the kingdom might not necessarily be able to do. The next big issue is that these rules as written make leveling up your kingdom excruciatingly slow and make leveling up faster as your kingdom levels up, because you get to convert up to 120 unspent resources to experience points on a 1-for-1 basis per turn. And higher level kingdoms, bigger kingdoms, have more resources to do this with. Now, the Kingmaker Adventure Path does something that I think GMs who run campaigns with these rules should do. It awards Kingdom XP for accomplishing various kingdom-related tasks, like discovering a new resource or landmark, or dealing with a problem that your kingdom is facing. And I did some guesstimating, and I saw that in the Kingmaker Adventure Path, once the party is able to found a kingdom, that they get a certain amount of kingdom XP over the course of their first couple of levels after founding a kingdom, and that they need to do about 50 kingdom turns for their kingdom to reach level 3, and the party is already several levels above that by that point. And that's a lot of turns, and we saw how long it took to do one of these turns. And that's taking into account the milestones that the players would likely achieve over this period. This shows how not playtested these were, and James Jacobs suggests that a table give a flat amount of XP per turn, say 250, to effectively level up the kingdom every 4 turns or so. And what I would propose is that until we have a better sense of how to make these rules work, because I do think there's something satisfying about tracking XP, I think we need to use milestones in the meantime. And once you found your kingdom in the adventure path, if I were to run it, I'd have the kingdom level up at twice the rate the party is. The kingdom, once it reaches the party's level, would then just advance in lockstep with the party. After some more GMs have experience doing this, we'll better be able to assign experience points totals in a way that feels satisfying and is a good pace. But in the meantime, we don't know. We'll have to play with these rules more to know what multiplier, let's say, we can apply to these. And I do not like the idea of resource points being translated to XP, because that's going to give a greater advantage to bigger, more established kingdoms. And remember that before the kingdom reaches level 3, that settlements cannot have any influence beyond the hex that they are currently in. So no ability to establish farmlands. After doing this playtest today, I saw that wasn't as crippling as I thought it would be, because the kingdom can fish or gather livestock or harvest crops without needing a farmland in order to accumulate food resources. But that might be more of a problem as you establish more settlements and consumption increases. So what I would propose is that whether or not you're adopting the other revisions I'm saying here, is that once the kingdom has expanded to 10 hexes, has become size 10, that the kingdom should be level 3 at that point. That is the level that settlements can become towns and can expand beyond one district. And the towns, furthermore, can have that radius around them. Furthermore, I would suggest some tables just skip to that. Just start with 10 hexes, be at level 3, you have some more room in your settlements to build more buildings. And also there are a lot of important buildings, impactful buildings, that are at level 3. Though if you like the feeling of progression, maybe start at level 2 or level 1 to gradually unlock buildings. Another rule I am not sure about is the rule that says that a building in a settlement only affects those hexes that that settlement influences. There are some checks where that doesn't make sense, like collecting taxes. That is a kingdom-wide check, and it's hard to see that being confined to a particular hex. And at the same time, it says that buildings that are located in your capital city affect checks throughout your whole kingdom. So it seems that means a whole slew of buildings that give bonuses to checks would only be located in the capital. It makes sense to only build those in the capital, which does not sound fun to me. All of that said, I like the ambition of these rules and the amount of material that's given for us to play with to make a fun system that works with kingdoms great and small. At the same time, these rules are a work in progress. I'm going to include a couple of links in the video description. One to the Paizo forums for the Kingmaker Adventure Path, where it seems like the threads about these rules are forming, to see what other GMs are doing about these and other problems I may not have found with these rules, and also how they worked the pacing of these of the kingdom's growth while running the Kingmaker Adventure Path, and also a link to my Discord, where I'm going to create a text channel for people to try to hack these rules and come up with and test different revisions and changes that we'll be discussing, since I would love to run Kingmaker one day myself. And the Discord community is also great to join for other reasons. So that's this video. My next and last video on Kingmaker is going to be like this one, but focused on the warfare rules, where I'll demonstrate the warfare rules in action using this a more developed version of Ronland. So like and subscribe and ring the bell if you want to get notified about that. And support my Patreon. I am an attorney who does public interest law and actually does not get paid for that. I get paid from doing YouTube and doing private game mastering. So, and the Patreon, of course. So that would be very much appreciated. That's it. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time.